Get through on this particular story covers essentially the eastern end of the continent and the Horn of Africa in a bit more detail. Dr. Tobias Takavarasha is the interim representative for the United Nations Food and Agriculture Agency here in Kenya. He's with me in studio tonight. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Rama.
So I guess let's just start with the bad news and get it out of the way. How much worse could this get?
This could get worse if no action is taken, because the size of these swarms are so huge that you need urgent action to prevent catastrophe.
I've seen this being described as something that we last saw, a few hundred years ago. Is that an accurate?
In the case of Kenya,
yeah.
70 to 75 years ago is when we last saw this magnitude of desert locust invasion. In the case of Somalia and Ethiopia, 25 years.
Okay, scary. So what exactly happened? Because looking at the times that we're looking at here, this hasn't happened. The conditions that give rise to swarms this big haven't happened in years. So what is different this time around?
What is different this time around, there have been two cyclones in the Indian Ocean, which could have contributed to creating conditions that are conducive for the breeding of locusts.
Including Cyclone Idai last year.
Exactly. And the locusts, they are tend to breed more when there is hot, wet, moist conditions. And the cyclone also motivates the movement of locusts. They move through using the wind.
Right.
So from the Arabian Peninsula through the Red Sea over into Somalia and Ethiopia, the wind facilitated the rapid movement of the locusts into Kenya. And by the third week of December, we had sightings of locusts in the 3 counties in northern Kenya. As we speak now, this has spread to over 17 counties in Kenya.
Which is, wow, okay, that's a significant proportion. That's roughly a third of the country.
Out of 47 counties.
Right. Now, from the maps that I did see about where these locust infestations, these swarms have been spotted, the one concern that did emerge is around commercial agriculture. So tea plantations, coffee plantations, it seems like those areas are pretty much on the borderline of where these swarms are. Are they at risk?
Not yet, and not likely to be at risk. As you know, tea and coffee, they thrive in the highlands, which are cooler, and those are not very conducive environments for the breeding of locusts. So we have not yet seen the threat or the invasion of locusts in the tea and coffee plantations. But in the pastures and the green fields, this is where we have seen the locust swarms coming in huge sizes. So
essentially this is a threat if you're looking at it from the perspective of pastoralists, or essentially northern Kenya, northeastern Kenya, and also smallholder farmers, because essentially alongside the coast going down towards Tanzania, they're also likely to be affected.
Certainly. The majority of smallholder farmers, they are pastoralists. They depend on the pastures and the fodder that comes from the grass. The same rain that we like to make the environment green is the same rain that also creates breeding conditions for locusts.
So basically, you're hit from both ends. You really can't catch a break.
We really can't catch a break, but we have to take action before the next long season, the rains that start March, April, when most of the farmers start planting their crops. So between now and March, we are intensifying efforts to ensure that the locust, the second generation of locusts, does not come into to become bigger swarms than the first generation that we've just been dealing with.
You need $76 million to deal with this particular infestation. Where are you on fundraising, and where will that money go? What is it funding?
First and foremost, the estimate for the 3 countries is $76 million to deal with the locust invasion. So far, responses have reached up to $22 million, with some in the pipeline. Where that money goes, it goes into hiring of aircraft, and it goes into procurement of pesticides, chemicals, spraying equipment, and supporting the logistics on the ground, including vehicles for scouting and the surveillance. So that is the big chunk of the cost.
Because the argument that some would make is, if you look at all the countries that we have in this region, Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya, they essentially all have standing militaries, and those entities that get billions of dollars every single year. What is it that we need to do to retrofit them, for lack of a better word, to be able to deal with something of this crisis?
To be able to deal with future crises, there's what we call disaster risk management and a preparedness. Governments in this part of the world Mind you, they have also experienced the floods and the droughts, and that they have been building up their resilience and the capacity to deal with the situations of this nature. But the magnitude of these situations is such that countries on their own may not have sufficient budgets to deal with the effects. And we are saying to the countries it is better to deal with the controlling of the locusts than to wait when the effects on food security are such that the requirement and the amount needed to feed people will be much bigger.
Much higher.
Exactly.
All right, so Dr. Tobias Takavarasha, thank you very much for your time this evening.